Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Polo. Hope you guys are doing well. Now, I try to learn something new every day, and one mind that I'm fascinated by is the mind of Thomas Sowell. He drops so many jewels from the few videos that I've seen of him, and I think that he is brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to be learning a little bit today about Lyndon Johnson. So this video I'm reacting to is We've All Been Lied To About Lyndon Johnson by Thomas Sowell. All right, let's go.
Another theme in wealth, poverty, and politics, which is a theme in the wider world, Black lives. Quoting Wealth, Poverty, and Politics, quote, "Those who have promoted the prevailing social vision in which lags, gaps, or disparities to the detriment of black people are the fault of white people are trapped in the corollary that these lags, gaps, or disparities should disappear once those other people are constrained by civil rights and policies."
Constrained by civil rights laws and policies. Wow.
Civil rights laws and policies. But nothing of the sort has happened. White people bind themselves to behave better by passing civil rights laws, and black lives should improve. But nothing of the sort has happened.
So by that definition, or by that paragraph, the civil rights laws should have improved the black family. It should have improved crime and poverty and all those things. And I guess that's what he's breaking down here.
In material terms, there has been some improvement, but that improvement began long before the civil rights laws were passed. From 1940 to 1960. 1940, 87% of black families in the United States were in poverty.
87%.
87.
Wow.
1960, it's 47. So there's a decline of 40 percentage points in that 20-year period.
Now that is a major jump. 40%. Okay, that's amazing.
In a generation and a half.
Yeah,
say.
and this is before the welfare state comes in under Lyndon Johnson in the form of the war on poverty, the civil rights laws, and so forth. Now, over the next 20 years, from 60 to 80, the rate of poverty among black families goes down an additional 18%, which is fine, but it's the continuation of a pre-existing trend at a slightly lower rate.
It's trending upwards. I get it.
So it's not, and yet it's credited in the media and even in academia, it's credited usually to the civil rights laws and to the Johnson war on poverty. But of course, this was just a continuation of the previous trend. What really turned bad were the social degeneration that occurred over that period. I could go on for days about the social degeneration, but let me give you just one quick example. When I grew up in Harlem in the 40s and 50s, I never heard a gunshot. Now, I'm sure someone fired a gun somewhere in Harlem, but it was not such a pervasive thing that you had to hear it. You know, I have relatives in Washington. I asked them the same question. People in my generation.
Growing up in Washington, D.C.
Yes, and low-income black neighborhoods. Did you ever hear a gunshot when you were growing up? And the answer was no. I have relatives in North Carolina. I asked the same question. No. And now, people in housing projects especially, they put kids, some of them, to bed in bathtubs so that they won't be hit by stray bullets in the night.
Wow. That has a lot of truth. I do remember speaking to people from his generation, and they would say things like, yeah, when I was a kid, you could leave your front door open, you can leave your bike in the front yard, and nobody would bother you. It really wasn't that bad in comparison to how it is today. So I'm pretty sure there is mostly truth in what he's saying there. So what happened to make things change?
That's the homicide rate in the years that I was growing up, and I was really quite lucky as I went through the research. I discovered being in the right place at the right time. The homicide victimization rate among black males in the decade of the 1940s declined by 18%. From 1950 to 1960, it declined another 22%. And then in the 1960s, when all these wonderful new ideas in the criminal justice system came in, all of that reversed, and it shot up 89% in one decade, wiping out all the progress of the two preceding decades. And you could run through a great number of other things. The children raised without two parents present. That was about 22% in 1960. One generation later, it was 67%.
Oh my goodness. I mean, these stats are crazy and readily available. What blows my mind is how we pass laws and pass policies, and we can see the statistics and we never reverse them. We never change anything. In fact, in most cases, we double down on the same type of policies. I mean, these policies most of them are still in place today. And you can see the degeneration of the black family, which is, for the most part, obsolete. I mean, of course, there are families out there, but the majority of black kids do not grow up in a two-parent household. And I think it's also creeping around in other cultures. It's really a perfect storm of a lot of bad things to happen, not just the civil rights policies. It's also the music. And, I think the music also plays a part in it, too, that encouraged a lot of mindsets and bad behavior on top of these policies, on top of them creating laws that specifically targeted a certain amount of people, specifically black men, where they would get locked up and get a lot of years for crimes that were specifically designed for them. Also incentivizing at the same time the black woman and, giving her housing, food, and things of that nature. If I have a bunch of employees and I pay them all the same amount of money, and there's like a couple employees that work so much harder than the others, but no matter how hard they work, they're all going to get paid the same, then they're all just pretty much not going to work. They're not going to be incentivized to work harder. And to me, that's how I see the family unit. Like if you incentivize young people not to get together and to stay together as a family, then they're not going to come together. I know the analogy doesn't really click the way I wanted it to, but basically what I'm saying is, if you're going to pay people to not be a family and they're going to be able to get all these benefits and all these different things, then they're not going to value it. Okay. And this is the reason why so many people come to this country and they ball out, because they already have a mindset. One of their biggest strengths is not just their work ethic and working hard, is also that they're pretty tight knit with the family unit. Okay. So that's at least the way I see it, but we'll let Thomas Sowell here break it down much better than I could.
And it's gone up a little since then as well. And now the rate among whites is higher than it was among blacks in 1960.
Right.
So if you look at what actually happens in the wake of these wonderful sounding policies, you see disaster after disaster.
All right. So very important question.
Wonderful sounding policies. That's pretty powerful, the way he put that, because the way they wrap up things, even today when they pass it, it sounds really beautiful. Even now when we watch the debate, they're saying a lot of things that sounds wonderful, but what are they really saying? Are they talking about the fentanyl crisis? Are they talking about the price of groceries? Are they talking about, the last debate, at the time I'm recording this, we have a presidential debate thing going on now, and I wanted to see more issues and policies being debated, more so than talking about each other's character. And it becomes like a popularity contest on who can throw dirt on who the most, versus talking about the real issues on why, when I go to the grocery store and I spend $200 on groceries, I barely fill my card up, if that. Okay. Instead people are more worried about what politician makes them feel good versus listening to what they're actually saying or what they're not saying, which is even more important. Blows my mind.
Sounding policies.
Excuse me, it looks like my system's messing up here.
Disaster after disaster.
All right. So very important question. Are the wonderful sounding policies simply irrelevant, beside the point, or do they actually play a role in these social pathologies?
It would be an incredible coincidence. But you see, and in fact, and I go into this in more detail in this second edition in the book. You see exactly the same pattern in Britain, and all the things that are, in fact, right down to riots in London, Manchester, and other cities, which read just like riots in Ferguson and Baltimore, and there's not and the things like race is not an issue because most of those people are white who are doing all of these things, right down to setting fire to police cars. So you see the same policies are brought in. And another thing that's very similar, and this gets into human capital again. People are saying, poor people can't rise in America anymore. And the data that they use leave out immigrants. Immigrants come here with little more than the clothes on their back. Go in here and by the next generation, their kids are excelling in school, going off to leading colleges and into professions.
Colin Powell his parents were Jamaican, as I recall.
Yes.
And wasn't he raised in Harlem? He's about 2 generations.
I don't know if he was raised there.
Or Brooklyn. New York,
I don't know where he
recall.
was raised. I know he went to college at City College, which is on the edge of Harlem at that time. Is now in the middle of Harlem.
Got it.
Man, I can listen to Thomas Sowell speak all day. The guy is just full of knowledge, and I consider him to be a genius. All right. I didn't grow up knowing about a Thomas Sowell, so it's fun to go down that rabbit hole. Hopefully this video gets views so I can do more. But I'll just give my opinion and take it for what it's worth, as I am no expert in this issue, and my opinion is always subject to change. But as someone who grew up without a mother, I grew up without a father my entire life, so I never really had a family. Even to this day, as a grown man, when I walk by and I see a family unit and I see them at the park or see them down the street, in my mind, I smile when I see that. Okay. I think that it is the backbone of society, as far as to, build a community off of family. And the problem with that is we've opened up Pandora's box and created generations of people who have benefited off of these laws and policies and have become accustomed to it. And these same policies are responsible for a lot of the degeneration we see in the prison system and in these communities, from the way I see it as someone who grew up in a lot of these communities. And I don't know if it can be fixed, especially with the new thing we're tackling now with social media, echo chambers, and big corporations pushing so much stuff towards the kids and even towards adults that are buying into it. So, I don't know where we will be 20 years from now. I like to think on a positive note and think that things will change, but we don't have a great history of correcting things. As we have a guy here that basically lays it out for you, saying this stuff isn't working, but instead what we do, we double down on it. Okay, we double down on a lot of bad policies instead of correcting things. And, that's heartbreaking. But overall, great video. I learned something. Maybe you guys can get the conversation started down in the comments section and teach me a couple things of what you learned or may know about the video or this subject matter. I'll be hanging out in the comments below. If you like this type of content, do me a big favor and like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell. And I appreciate you guys for watching. I appreciate your time, as your time is very valuable. Peace.